I think we were fairly confident with going into We Can't Dance. I was actually surprised to see that Phil was still there, actually. I fully expected him to have disappeared. He'd had so much success, I thought, well, he doesn't need us guys anymore.
After the Invisible Touch tour, I decided to... That's when I started working on my train set, if I remember rightly. And then I did some film work, so I did Buster. So that took care of a fair amount of time, preparation, filming, shooting, editing, doing that soundtrack or getting involved in that. Then I did But Seriously, which was my record between Invisible Touch and We Can't Dance, and that whole world tour thing was serious too. So there was every reason for there to be a delay.
I think at this stage we had this thing whereby we were doing a Genesis record and then solo stuff, and I was doing Mike and Mechanics now, and so you come back with you've learnt things, and that I think that break, that variety of creative work with other people, meant you kind of came back fresh, ready to appreciate what the other two did.
I was still very fully committed, and to me, I was actually more involved in We Can't Dance than any other record.
I felt pretty confident going in that we could do something good, I felt that I still felt a lot of good ideas around. And we were writing, and we decided to change producer just to or producer-engineer, just to give ourselves a bit of a kick in the arse, really. I'd worked with Nick Davis when I did my solo album Still and things, and Mike had worked with them as well. And we thought it would be fun to try someone different. And of course, Nick has ended up being the man who's done all the remixes, he's a very, very good engineer, producer style guy. But so all those things were a little bit different. And we went in, and again, just the same way as we had with Invisible Touch, we had nothing written, and we just started improvising and seeing what ideas would come. And fortunately, things came.
I think No Son of Mine is probably one of my most recent favourite tracks, because once again it's almost like the start of what we could be doing, what was the next sort of stage, you know what I mean? It's like once again a dark atmosphere. That sound Tony has was a little guitar thing I played, which he looped and messed around with and made it sound like an elephant.
Trying to find the way out.
Sounds like an elephant being sick. Which is a very distinctive sound. Again, I always like to try and get a sound in there if I can. This was, again, just sampling noise in the room, and it was just Mike actually making some thrashing around, and I just cut out this little bit in the middle of it, and then slowed it right down, and just used the front end of it, and stuck it with this E minor chord, and the effect was fantastic. I thought, this is great, I love this. And immediately, then Phil started warbling on top of it, and we thought we got a song here that sounds really good.
This album was probably the best example of the three of us improvising, and I'm singing improvising at the same time. We did it before, but this was much more so on this record, where there'd be a drum machine playing and Mike would be playing something, Tony would be playing, and I'd be singing. And out of that stuff, No Son of Mine, improvised most of it, well, a lot of it, not most of it, a lot of it.
If you can just set up an atmosphere sometimes, that's what it's all about. You just get a sort of a feel going. And funnily enough, what you do after it sometimes is not so important. Once you've got that initial mood, it carries you for a long, long time. And so I was very proud of that one. And then I thought the lyric that Phil wrote on top of it, I thought was one of the best as well. Really good, that.
The lyric of No Son of Mine, again, was one of those, every time we played the thing, it was like, son of mine. I know, I have no idea why I sang it. No idea at all. Just those words, they sang well. So that was a story of this kid that kind of basically was tired of going home and seeing his mother and father fighting. Father would come back having drunk too much and wallop, and he just had enough. And eventually he realised that he needed to confront this problem. So it was a story.
It's probably my favourite song on the album in many ways. We play it on stage and everything. It still sends shivers down my spine. It's just a song. It seems if you can do it all with sort of a few chords and simple rhythm, then I think there's nothing to be against that.
It was on a divine visitation that the Lord told me that I was to go on the television. The Lord actually talks to me, I hear what's being said. And he said to me, get me $18 million by the weekend. And the angel of the Lord stands by my side and speaks into my ear. It's a beautiful thing, and I hear what's being said. It's a marvelous, marvelous experience. I never thought such a thing could happen. In the name of Jesus.
When we first went to America back in the early 70s, you switched on the telly, and we all came down one day and said the same, did you see that on television? We just couldn't believe it. It was just unbelievable. I'd never, having been brought up on sort of Z cars and stuff, you suddenly see this guy sort of, I believe and all this. It was something extraordinary. We were mesmerised by it, really.
There was this famous guy, and I can't remember exactly, Oral Roberts or Jimmy Swaggart or, one of those guys that actually had gone on television saying that he'd had a dream and been... Christ or the God had told him that he has to get $18 million by the weekend, So it's for him and not for me, and people were giving him this money, and this was a current story, really. But it was all going on, and I couldn't resist the temptation to write about it.
You see the face on the TV screen, coming at you every Sunday. See the face on the billboard, well, that man is me. On the cover of the magazine, there's no question why I'm smiling. You buy a piece of paradise, you buy a piece of me.
When I first started singing it, I don't think Tony and Mike thought I was trying to take it from the funny point of view. They kind of weren't sure about it. And I kind of said, no, this is like, this is meant to be a parody of, Life of Brian, I know, I should know about the Messiah. I followed a few.
I've been talking to Jesus all my life. Oh, yes, he knows me, and he knows I'm right.
And then, of course, we followed through with the video, which, and there was a guy called Ernest Ainsley who was my hero, really. I mean, I had to watch him. Anytime I saw him, I had to watch him because I couldn't quite believe this guy was doing it, out, I believe. And so, I even collected videos of him, and I was just obsessed with this guy because I couldn't believe how awful he was. It was awful suits, awful wig, that just, no matter how old he got, the wig stayed the same. And we made the video, which is basically me doing him, and we did it in Dallas while we were rehearsing.
Always love dressing up on the video. I like to think that it's a way we could sort of be humorous without being embarrassing. But I don't think it was. Looking back, it seems it's tongue-in-cheek, and because the lyric is quite a strong subject, it makes any kind of fooling around by us okay, I think.
The middle eight, which was great because we could pretend to be like we felt the evangelists really were, and we've got the swimming pools, all these beautiful girls around us, so one chance to have beautiful girls everywhere, so we took it.
One for me practicing what I'm preaching. One for me making no sacrifice.
It wasn't meant to be irreverent to religion or God or Christ, it was actually meant to say, come on people, wake up, these guys are fleecing you,
Tony had this boom, 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 which he played on the keyboard. And I had a guitar riff. And what I do remember actually is that I remember playing it and thinking, well, that's really quite nice. But then I couldn't find it again. I had to go back and find the tape, recorded it, and listen over and over and over again to work it out. Because it's a simple riff, but it's quite unusual the way it's actually put together.
We couldn't quite find the way to do it. We tried doing it heavy. Phil would sort of play big drums and I was a big nothing was really sounding very good. And one time I got this new keyboard, which was a sort of Roland thing, and it had a sort of preset drum sound thing on it. And I just started playing along with it. It had a bass drum, and I went boom, 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 like this, and then started playing these silly sounds on top of it. And the whole thing suddenly took on this completely different character. And we thought, well, this is really good. We'll do it like that. And what we did was actually after we'd written it, we didn't do anything to it for about the next month or two, and then just said, well, we'll put that song down, the one with the guitar riff.
5 minutes work, that was our classic example of, let's not do this anymore, let's just record this right now, And I remember Mike was doing the guitar part again, and I was writing the lyrics in the corner on a chair and said, I'm finished, and we went and did it.
And the next day we had the song, and we thought, that's great, it's just so simple, just keep it really, really simple. A lot of humour, and it works. A great contrast to other things we've done in our career, really. So I was, pretty pleased with that as well.
But I can dance, I can talk. The only thing about me is the way that I walk.
Well, the dance is something actually, that was Phil really. I mean, we were in the studio, I can't remember what we were doing. It was a 3-day shoot in Los Angeles, and he suddenly just started doing that, And it took an hour and a half to record it. And I'll always forever be known as the guy who does that. But better than Tony, I hope.
As we get older and older, the only thing that people remember us about is this walk, you know. But it's good to be remembered for something, is what I'd say, you know.
I remember reading Roger Waters doing an interview in Rolling Stone. Said, and as for Genesis, you know, doing that stupid walk with that awful song, and I kind of thought, I mean, now I've met Roger a few times, and I kind of know that, you know, he's a miserable bastard. Basically, he knows I love his music, but really, you know, he's kind of has got no sense of humour, or not. He has a very dark, cynical sense of humour. But he didn't see the fun in it at all. I kind of think he felt that this was our big statement. But so I did write to him, tell him. But he just said that what he said was meant to be off the record, which didn't exactly make it any better.
Driving the Last Spike was a slightly interesting thing for us in a way, because it had always been on previous albums, certainly the previous 3 or 4, the long songs. Tony writes the lyrics to the long songs and all the rest of it. And on this one, Phil said, well, let me have a go. I'd like to try a long song. So he said, okay. I said, well, let's Drive the Last Spike. Why not, you know? And so he wrote a lyric, which I think was, from his point of view, he really enjoyed doing, because he could stretch a little bit more and write more of a story and bring in other ideas. This is what you can do on a long song. You've got, and also the instrumental things kind of illustrate things. You know, you've got the nice sort of mechanical bit in the middle of that where the sort of everything's going. And I think when you're writing a lyric like that, you listen to the song and the little ideas come at you from it. And so I think it has a different character from sort of things like Domino Home by the Sea, where I tend to get slightly more intense, you know, and he's got a slightly different approach. I think it works quite nicely.
Waving goodbye as I left them in tears, remembering all we'd said.
I love that song. I sang the melodies to what the music, the chords that Tony was playing, and I ended up being sent this book, actually, coincidentally around the same time, called the Railway Navvies, and I read it, and I just, the idea, the things you never think about, you know, like the railways, you know, you go through a tunnel on a train, you don't think anything of it. Then you think of how that tunnel was built way back in the 1800s, how many people were killed making the tunnel when the tunnel collapsed, or when it was, you know, the explosions to move, you know. So I just wrote this song about these people that just went off and left their families and maybe never come back. I mean, it wasn't war, this was just building a railway, you know. So, you know, songs like that I really, really loved, and I kind of was really proud of my work on We Can't Dance.
This album, the Can't Dance album, was a good album cover. But some of our best work comes from when you find something that was already out there and adapt it. It's quite hard commissioning sometimes, because they come back and you kind of go, well, I don't actually like it, you know. So I think it was just a nice little Men on the Moon. It reminded me of that book by The Little Prince, Petit Prince by Saint-Exupéry. It had that same look, a little man on that planet. And I think our stuff often works quite well, slightly animated.
The We Can't Dance album cover I thought was a nice return to form. I thought it was the best album cover we'd had certainly since Duke. Again, kind of similar to Duke in a way. It's very simple, just a sort of cartoon type picture almost, you know, but strong atmosphere, I think, and just a feel about it that suggested that the album, you know, had a little more romance in it perhaps than the previous one, and just, you know, I think it worked nicely, and a great logo too, which of course we've ended up using ever since then. The E's the wrong way round, you know, just seems to still fit.
The last 3 albums, Genesis, Invisible Touch with Phil, and We Can't Dance, I just remember the writing of them being a real pleasure to do. Fast, easy, really, really creative, you know, things just came out.
There were a lot of good moments on it, really, and we were very confident at this stage. And I did feel when we finished this record, probably the only time in my career I thought, well, I think this is going to do very well, this album. You know, every other time I've always had a bit of trepidation, but this time I felt pretty good.